Thank you for joining Resilient Cyber. My name is Chris Hughes, and today I'm joined by a team from JIT. Thanks for being here, Amir and Aviram. Thanks for being here. Excited to dive in with you guys and chat all things AppSec, application security posture management, and so on. But for folks that don't know your background or have heard of you, can you tell a bit of each of your backgrounds for us?
Of course.
You go ahead, Amir.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start. So thank you, Chris, for hosting both of us. Hi, everyone. My name is Aviram Shmueli. I'm one of the founders at JIT. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 25 years. About 10 years, I dedicated to offensive cybersecurity. I did reverse engineering, looking for zero-day vulnerabilities and writing exploitation and basically managing cyber campaigns. I've done that for about 10 years, and then I moved to the defensive cybersecurity, working for companies like Dom9, one of the earliest ASPM solutions that was acquired by Checkpoint. Then I moved to CyberArk and later to SentinelOne. So I kind of had the privilege to do both offensive and defensive cybersecurity. About four years ago, I founded JIT with 4 amazing partners, and we set out on a mission to help engineering teams accelerate the implementation of security without slowing down velocity. And this is what we are doing at JIT.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amir Kessler. Chris, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. I've been in the cybersecurity domain for 15 years now. I started in the IDF in the cyber unit. I worked for a while in mobile security. A company I worked for was acquired by Checkpoint, so also got familiar with the Checkpoint world. And then I moved for around 7 years to the domain of cyber risk quantification, where we helped companies understand their cyber exposure in financial terms. And I joined JIT as the director of product management.
Very cool. Yeah, so you both bring a pretty unique perspective, in my opinion. Both from the offensive side, talk about risk quantification, product management, all things therein. So I think it'll be a really good conversation today around application security. But before we dive in, I did want to say I had a chance to sit down with the JIT platform, you and the team there, and it was very impressive. I found several features of the platform very compelling that address longstanding challenges in AppSec, things both from a technical and a cultural perspective. And it had a comprehensive approach from code to cloud environments, as well as an ability to have an extensible platform. Typically, there'll be a bias for certain tools, things like that. But you guys had a really extensible platform that allowed for natively integrating with widely used commercial and open source software tools, but also adding further coverage that teams may have a preference for, or even something they developed organically too. And it allowed for a broad aggregation of insights and findings, from different tools, and also contextualizing the findings, which I know we'll be talking about today. To help teams really focus on what matters most, minimizing toil and frustration between development and security teams. And you had an innovative approach too, like on the psychology side of security, looking at things like leaderboards, allowing teams to kind of demonstrate their improvement over time and have some fun when they do AppSec. AppSec can be a challenge. It could be, it feels like a never-ending grind sometimes. And you had a really unique way of kind of gamifying that, which was really cool to see. And then obviously you had a really impressive approach when it looks at the user experience for developers and making something that they actually want to work with rather than, another tool that they dread engaging with, they don't want to touch, they don't want to use, which we see often as well. So I really was impressed with what you all put together. Before we dive into certain areas there, we've seen a lot of interest lately around ASPM, or application security posture management, in the ecosystem. And I'm curious from your perspective, both of you or either one of you, what do you think is driving the rise of ASPM and this new category of AppSec tooling, for example?
Yeah, Chris, we think that every company worldwide is responsible for developing a secure product, secure applications for the benefits of their customers. And we believe that the ASPM solution, they lead the way. And that's because of few reasons. Basically today, the technology keeps evolving and the risks become more and more complicated. And the ASPM solutions, they address 3 major issues. First, visibility. ASPM platforms provide a complete visibility from code to cloud for all the vulnerabilities in your stack. And they can find vulnerabilities in your code and in your cloud and in different areas of your stack, and they provide a unified and consolidated view. So the visibility is one aspect. Customers, they prefer not to use a bunch of point solutions, but rather one comprehensive solution. The other issue that ASPM platforms address is the prioritization. There are thousands in even in medium or small organization, there are thousands of vulnerabilities, but only a fraction of them is critical and it's important. And the ASPM platform, they help you in prioritizing those vulnerabilities so you can focus on the most important ones. And the third issue is about remediation. ASPM platform, they will help you prioritize fixes and remediate those those issues by providing the fixes for the developers. So I would say visibility, prioritization, and remediation, those are the most important pillars of ASPM platform.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, maybe why we're seeing it now. So I completely agree, of course, with what Aviram said about the visibility, the prioritization, the remediation. But I think what we're experiencing in the last years is an overflow everywhere. So we're getting more types of vulnerabilities, more type of tools, more types of detection methods and techniques. And the more technology advances and the more all of that grow, you have to have a tool to kind of orchestrate and organize everything that you're seeing. Because everything that Aviram mentioned, kind of the connecting thread is that it could explode. Like visibility, if you have too much tools and too many detection and too many data, you're kind of losing yourself in it. And even if you are able to kind of cope with all of that, how do you prioritize? How do you know what is the most important out of all of it? And even if you prioritized, how do you know how to remediate? That also takes a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. So I don't think it's really possible to have a application nowadays, a software application without an ASPM monitoring and orchestrating all of that. And I truly believe that's the main reason why we're seeing this trend that we are seeing recently.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think we've seen this acronym soup that we love in security, SaaS, DAST, SCA, secret scanning, infrastructure as code, like the list goes on and on, right? There's a lot of tools and for good reason, right? We need to address these different risks and things to consider in AppSec around, securing applications. And then we see like sub 5% of vulnerabilities actually being exploited in the wild. And then, terms like reachability, or is it, what's running in production? What systems are impacted? What data is on the system? On and on. It's a complex environment. So I think having a comprehensive ASPM solution to kind of bring all that together and tie everything together, help you prioritize the right things, keep you from jumping around from tool to tool, it is critical. And then that kind of dives into, kind of the experience side of things. And I know you both have, really emphasized the developer experience and user experience of the JIT platform. What makes you prioritize that part of it so much, and why is that so critical?
This is a great question, Chris. When we founded the company, we saw and we still see today that, there are good security tools out there, but they are not used. They become shelfware. And the reason is that the developers, the people who are actually fixing those issues, they hate them. They don't want to work with them because they do not suit the way they work. They do not suit their native workflows. They do not seamlessly integrate with how developers like to work. And this is why we decided to highly prioritize the developer experience, because we believe that if you have the developer buy-in, and if they are gonna like working with security, and security will be seamlessly integrated to their workflows, then security will be efficiently implemented. And this is why we invested a lot in the developer experience. That means that, for example, with JIT, developers, they do not need to sign in to a third-party application. They keep working in their own native environment, be that, for example, GitHub or GitLab or their IDE. They do not need to context switch because they work in their native workflows. They will never be bombarded with issues because we really filter those issues that the developers are going to get. And we also provide the fixes to the developers, SCOT fixes, so developers can actually expedite the process of remediation.
Yeah.
How about Amir, from your perspective?
Yeah, if I could also chime in here, the way I like to look at it is we're trying to switch or kind of shift the way that developers are looking at security from a burden, for something that they have to do, that they must do, even though it's not in what they're supposed to do, to a real natural part of the development process and their workflow. And the way that we see it, we have this phrase, we call it the shared responsibility between security and engineers. And we really believe that the only way to reach true security is through that path. Only if developers and security will look at it as a shared responsibility, everything will work and the application will be more secure at the end of the day. And as Aviram said, we realized that the way to reach that sense of shared responsibility is only if you accommodate or if you adjust yourself to the ways that developers are already working. If you change the tool to really match the natural environments and the natural any tools or workflows that developers already use, that's the path to go. And that's why we're putting so much effort into it.
Yeah, you actually talked about, developers dreading it. I laughed because I read this study from Harvard and Linux Foundation, and some developers refer to security as a soul withering chore. And I think many of us who have worked in security can kind of empathize with that perspective sometimes. And that's why the experience piece is so critical. And, also, you've talked about this piece, this as well, using tools that they want to use or they're used to using. And Git has taken this really unique approach of, you have some things baked in and available from the onset, but you also have this extensibility to the platform where people can add additional tools, whether it's different open source tools that they use, different COTS tools, things that they've organically developed, for example. What made you all prioritize that approach?
So we would like to be the Switzerland of security tools because, customers, they expect to use their own security tools depending on their budget and tech stack. So we do not want to decide for them. We will provide, the default that we believe is an awesome solution, but developers or AppSec practitioners, they can decide to use their own tools and plug them into the platform. By that, we do not want to decide for them. So if you prefer using your own tool, you're welcome. Go ahead and just plug it into the platform. This is why we built Git from the ground up to be fully extensible, open and extensible.
Yeah, and I'll also add to that. So like you said, Chris, we know that developers could be opinionated about the tools that they use. And kind of circling back to what I just said, if we know that this is the reality and we know that this is how developers work or even security people work, our idea is to create engagement and to create this shared responsibility. So we want to allow everyone to use whatever they're used to, because we know that will only increase the engagement and the shared responsibility and the ability to work together, security and developers on the same platform. So it's kind of the same mindset or the same philosophy that I just mentioned. And, maybe just to throw it also here that we just integrated, for example, with Wiz. And we noticed that a lot of I know Wiz is a big thing now, it's very trendy. And we noticed the amount of clients and the amount of customers or developers or security people that want to use Wiz or already using Wiz. So we've shifted our resources and we've done the effort to make it work because it was so important for us to let everyone keep using what they use and really get that out of the way. So everyone could focus on building a more secure application and not getting used to a new tool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that was a very mature approach that you all took, kind of flushing that out with customers and, people that you're engaging in the community, because I've worked on different platform engineering and, DevSecOps, AppSec teams, you name it. And people will come in with opinionated tooling where you must do things a certain way or must use certain tools. And developers can be, very strong opinions when it comes to certain, they want to use something they're used to using or they're comfortable with. And then also there's a maturity aspect from the organizational perspective. Maybe they've made some big investments in certain products and tools.
Exactly.
They don't want to, there's a switching cost, for example, or switching to a different product or tool. And also, I think from a competitive perspective, it makes you, much more friendly to the AppSec peers in the ecosystem, because they can integrate with your platform. You're not trying to kind of push anyone out. Like, people can integrate with your platform, bring findings in, bring context in. I think it's a really unique way to approach that compared to some others who maybe try to force a certain way of doing things or a certain set of tools, things like that. So that extensibility piece is really amazing in my opinion. I wanted to ask as well, we've talked about, vulnerability prioritization. We've talked about, the need to really focus on what matters, right? How does the Git team approach that when it comes to focusing on things that are known to be exploited or likely to be exploited or, attach the critical resources and assets for the organization? What's your approach on that?
All right. I'm happy you asked about it. It's something that we're putting a lot of effort into. So essentially, the way we see it, the market is kind of shifting from the detection that we talked about earlier to prioritization. Prioritization is really everything. And in prioritization, the way we see it, the way to solve the prioritization problem is with context. That is the key, and that is the solution. And I'll explain what I mean. I think today the most popular way to prioritize between different vulnerabilities, for example, is using severity. CVSS score is the great example, and we all know it's far from being perfect. Let's call it that. some vulnerabilities could have a very high severity, but they could be located in non-interesting places in the code, test files, or just non-relevant places. And to be able to really do the real prioritization, what you need to do is understand the impact. If this vulnerability would be exploited, what will happen? And to be able to predict that impact, or to predict the likelihood of a vulnerability to actually being exploited, you need to understand the general context the vulnerability lies in. So when I say context, what do I mean? For example, could any data be exfiltrated from because of the vulnerability? Will customers be affected? Will there be an outage? Stuff like that. And we've taken that approach. We've taken the context approach for the prioritization. And how do we do that? We are utilizing the fact that we have access to your code environment and to your cloud environment. And essentially, we're building graphs. We're building connections between your resources. So a repository deploying a cloud resource, let's say a Lambda that is maybe connected to an API. And through this graph, we can understand where the vulnerability really lies. It doesn't really impose any risk. Because if something is, like in this example, in a repository, a vulnerability that is connected to an API, it's externally accessible. Or maybe it's connected to a production environment, or maybe it's connected to a business critical application. And that's what we do. We build these graphs. So we'll be able to give the full context, the entire context for vulnerability. And that is how we prioritize, or how we help our users prioritize. And I'll just say one more thing. It's not only that we surface this to the security folks, we also surface it to the developers. Given everything that we talked about, while you're developing, if you've done something that could impose risk, we'll also give the context of why it's important and why it imposes risk, because it's connected to a production environment, for example. So it's something that we really put a lot of emphasis on.
Yeah, I would like to add on that take, for example, Log4j. Log4j could be an internal repository that never gets deployed. And there could be another instantiation of Log4j, which is in production and accessible from the internet. With the naive detection used by many of the security tools, then you would treat both of them the same way, because you would detect a Log4j vulnerability. However, with the context engine that JIT provides on top of the scanners, we can differentiate between those two cases and highlight the priority for the Log4j, which is in production and likely to be exploited, versus the Log4j, which is an internal repository that will never get deployed.
Yeah, I think that context is key. And, I like the aspect of, demonstrating it visually in graphs. It's often, there's a saying, like, I think it's attackers think in graphs, defenders think in lists. And we hear more and more, we need to think like an attacker, right? Where can we see lateral movement? Where can we see critical assets that might be impacted? What could the kind of the splash, or, kind of the blast radius of an incident be, for example, right? And being able to visualize that in the attack path is critical and key for sure. And I wanted to ask, we see a lot of attention now around ASPM, right? It's become a hot topic, being covered by different outlets and analysts, and, obviously vendors leaning into the term, including you all. What do you really pride yourself on when it comes to differentiating the team at JIT, the platform, the product, versus some of the peers out there that may be also kind of rallying behind this new term?
So first, the breadth of coverage. JIT provides unparalleled coverage of security tools, including DAST for API and web application scanning in authenticated and non-authenticated mode. We do CSPM, and we also look for misconfigurations in your SCM environment. Not to mention that we do SAST, SCA, SQL detection, and all the static scanners. So in terms of the breadth, the JIT platform is very wide and very unique in that. We are also very proud of the developer experience. We invested a lot in the dev experience because we wanted developers to use security. This is why we integrated with developers' native workflows. We added S-code fixes, so the developers will be able just to click on a button, and that will introduce the fix. Instead of just Googling for the fix, we provide the fix just in the native workflow of the developer. So this is something that we are very proud of. Another element of the platform is the team leader experience. We believe that the team leaders, they have, like you mentioned, Chris, the team leaders, they have an important role in implementing security because they are responsible for the team tasks and time, right? So we wanted to incentivize the team leaders to invest in security. How we did it? So we created the leaderboard for example, where every team leader can see how their team is ranked relatively to others. The other element is the fact that our context engine is working pretty much amazing. And like Amir mentioned before, you can really understand the likelihood and the impact of exploitation. And the latest element is the security plan. This is a very unique differentiator. With the security plans, we connect security to the business goal. So for example, we analyze security plans, industry standards like SOC 2, OWASP ASVS, OWASP Top 10, and we codify them into the platform. So if you, as an AppSec leader, you're interested in implementing OWASP ASVS, JIT can take you all the way to completely implement the plan. And also we are extensible in that aspect as well. So if you have your own security plan that you manage towards achieving, we can implement it into JIT for you.
Anything to add there, Amir?
Yeah, I think Aviram really covered all of it. Maybe just one thing to add is maybe to kind of notice that from everything that he mentioned, there's a connection here where we're trying to really address each of the personas that are involved in this process. So the security plans, for example, that's more of a strategic management decision or something that you want to monitor and report on, the connection to your business goals and your ability to comply with different frameworks or different certificates. But then you also have the team lead. The development team lead. I don't think there's a lot of products out there that really even think about that persona. And the fact that the team lead also has a responsibility in the process of security. How is my team performing? How are my assets? How secure are they? And then we go all the way down to the developer. The developer never leaving their environment, putting all that effort into the developer experience. So what we're really trying to do is create this ecosystem for all of the personas. So as I mentioned earlier, so it will be easy and frictionless for everyone to work together. And I think that creates that shared responsibility that really leads to a better security posture.
Yeah, I love the framing of the shared responsibility model. We often hear it in cloud, but when it comes to application security, you're thinking about it from the organizational, perspective, the dynamics between different teams and personas involved. And I think it's a really unique way to approach it rather than just building it for security or just for the developer. You're thinking about different incentives of individuals within an organization, different workflows that they need to consider, how they work and operate within the organization. I think that really makes it valuable and compelling to different personas, as you said, and rather than just one team or one, kind of one stakeholder within the organization when it comes to application security. So that said, we've kind of run the gambit of, everything from exploitability, context, developer experience, gamification, you name it. What's on the horizon for the team at JIT? Where can folks learn more and where should they be watching?
Should I start, Aviram?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a lot being planned, as you can imagine. So first and foremost, we're looking into better integrating AI, Gen AI. This word hasn't been said yet in this conversation, and we're already more than 20 minutes in, so very good for us. But no, I'm kidding. But I think that Gen AI has an amazing potential across the board with ASPM, from the ability to, like we talked about, the context engine, and to take all of the data that is coming from what we learn about, your cloud environment and code environment, and to even find maybe vulnerabilities that you couldn't have thought of without Gen AI. They're making more connections, seeing more toxic combinations, seeing more attack paths, maybe that we would have thought of with our heuristics. So that is one really big thing that we want to do. It's also something that we want to implement into the developer experience. So even improving more the developer experience, you can imagine somewhat of a ChatGPT inside the MR or PR experience where you can better understand where is this vulnerability coming from? Where is this vulnerability? Why is it important? So stuff around that. Second area that I want to touch is also the area of aggregation. So I think that the next step would be for prioritization, would be to help our users understand how different vulnerabilities interact and how their combination could maybe even increase the overall likelihood or the overall impact an attack could have. So just kind of connecting the dots to see if there's maybe a cloud vulnerability that, if it's connected to a code vulnerability, put together could complete a full attack path. Like you said, thinking in paths. So that's one other big thing that we're planning to do. That's from my side. Aviram, anything you want to add?
Yeah, these are great capabilities, Amir. I would just say that we want to take the security plans notion to the next level, and to provide more security plans out of the box, like for example, HIPAA, PCI DSS. So you can see those security plans in the platform and implement them in a very simple way. We also want to make that completely extensible, so every organization will be able to codify their security plan that they're actually managing right now in a spreadsheet into the platform.
Yeah, I love that aspect because often in compliance, compliance is a driver around application security, but often we live in, Word, Excel, PDF, right? Taking that
Exactly.
and codifying it in the platform, I think is a really unique way to tackle that problem and kind of bridge the gap between governance, risk, and compliance and application security and development teams. So another great thing on the roadmap you all are working on. So Amir, Aviram, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for everyone who tuned in. Again, that's jit.io, JIT.io. Definitely go give it a check and dig into what they've built and what they're building. It's really exciting stuff. And thanks to everyone who tuned in again. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chris.
Chris. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.